When freedom's sons were on the march in California, it was his march. To the followers of Cesar Chavez, protesting the suffering of migrant workers, he said, "Though you may be old and bent from many years of labor, no man will stand taller than when you say, 'I was there. I marched with Cesar.'"
Throughout the 1900s, farm workers suffered tragic working conditions in the Californian fields. After experiencing the conditions firsthand, Cesar Chavez strived for a solution. Chavez led the United Farm Workers of America and encouraged peaceful protests, including strikes and nationwide produce boycotts. A 5-year-long grape boycott organized by Chavez ended triumphantly in 1970 when the United Farm Workers signed labor contracts with several produce farms. As a result of Cesar Chavez's perseverance through further demonstrations, the Agricultural Labor Relations Act was signed in 1975, establishing collective bargaining for farm workers and a Californian board which resolved problems pertaining to farm workers' rights. The law transformed the laborers' working environment by improving wages, giving health benefits, and providing access to facilities and clean water.
Cesar Chavez was born on March 31, 1927, in Yuma, Arizona. Soon after, the Chavez family became migrant farm workers, when tragically, the bank foreclosed on their home. Once Chavez completed 8th grade, he was compelled to drop out of school altogether to support his family by working in the fields full-time. Then, in 1944, Chavez joined the Navy. During the 1930s, as Chavez was growing up, a wave of labor strikes, varying from citywide strikes to factory takeovers, were occurring. In acknowledgement of the strikes, Congress passed the National Labor Relations Act on July 5, 1935. The act gave employees the right to be involved with labor organizations and encouraged collective bargaining between employers and employees. However, this act did not specifically include farm workers.
Southern politicians didn't want to upset the racial or class order of their states. When they decided to vote for this law at the federal level, they said, "Okay, we'll vote for this, but only if you exclude these workers."
When Chavez returned from the Navy in 1946, he was reintroduced to tragic working conditions that the farm workers tolerated. The job required back-breaking work with minimal clean water, which did not compensate for California's extreme heat. Often, the growers sprayed dangerous pesticides over the fields while the laborers worked. In addition, there was a lack of adequate restrooms. Despite the long hours, they received low wages. Chavez was infuriated with how minorities were treated. To aid workers, he joined the Community Service Organization, or CSO, in 1952. The CSO strived to improve Latino voting, working, and educational rights. After working with the CSO for 10 years, Chavez sought to create a union focusing on all farm workers' rights. In 1962, Chavez led the CSO and co-founded the National Farm Workers Association, or the NFWA, along with Dolores Huerta.
On September 8, 1965, hundreds of farm workers went on strike in the Delano area in protest of the conditions they experienced. On September 16th, the NFWA agreed to participate in the strike. Later, demonstrators recognized that the progress was slow-moving, so they asked consumers to boycott Shenley vineyards. Nevertheless, not everyone believed in the protesting. Some laborers refused to take part in the demonstrations. "I just want to work, that's all. The Chavistas won't let you work unless you pay dues for the months you're at home." To draw national attention to the movement, the NFWA organized a march from Delano to the Capitol building in Sacramento on March 17, 1966. The march was a major triumph for the NFWA. Shenley Vineyards agreed to sign a contract guaranteeing better conditions, higher wages, and health benefits for its workers. Afterward, on August 22nd, the NFWA combined with the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee. The leaders of the organizations, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Larry Itlong, and Philip Vera Cruz, formed the United Farm Workers of America, or the UFW. With many supporters, the UFW began widening the boycott to different corporations, including Guimara Vineyards. Due to a loss of profit, Guimara Vineyards began using other companies' labels to sell their grapes. As a result, the UFW began to spread the news across the country, instructing consumers to boycott all California table grapes, unless there was a union label on the package. By 1970, people across the nation participated in the boycott. On July 29th, Guimara Vineyards led about 150 Delano area table grape growers to sign the UFW's union contracts. These 3-year-long contracts were a notable triumph for Chavez and the UFW because they signed 30,000 farm workers into the union and demanded that the growers provide resting periods, bathrooms, clean drinking water, and protective measures against pesticides. They also allowed the farm workers to negotiate.
Soon after, many Salinas Valley growers signed contracts with the Teamsters Union that disagreed with the UFW. Nick Jones, a UFW organizer, believed, "It is much easier for the grower to sit across the table and negotiate with white Teamsters than with Chicano, Black, and Filipino representatives of the UFW." These new contracts merely increased the non-union wages by a dime and didn't offer health care benefits, housing, education, or protection against pesticides. In response, 10,000 farm workers went on strike yet again on August 24th. After being prohibited from continuing to strike and picket, Chavez called for a boycott of Gallo wine and non-union lettuce and grapes. However, this new boycott aroused opposition. On December 4, 1970, Superior Court Judge Gordon Campbell sentenced Chavez to 10 days in jail after Chavez refused to call off the boycott. "Though we were worried about losing a life, we are going to continue to strike, and we are determined to continue non-violently." Although he was arrested, he told his followers to boycott the hell out of him. Therefore, the protesting continued. In 1975, on June 5th, a crucial triumph occurred. The Agricultural Labor Relations Board and Act were enacted to create justice in the fields by protecting and implementing the rights of farm workers. It gave farm workers the ability to associate with a labor union under the protection of a law. Finally, after ensuring that the act was enforced, Cesar Chavez ended the lettuce boycott in 1978. 17 million Americans were recorded to have participated in the boycott. Although Chavez triumphed by gaining improved working conditions, he remained concerned about the use of farm chemicals. In 1988, Chavez participated in a water-only fast, protesting the use of harmful pesticides. He finished his 36-day fast after his doctor cautioned him that continuing the demonstration could tragically result in his death.
Unfortunately, in 1993, Cesar Chavez passed away at age 66. To acknowledge Chavez's perseverance and triumphs, President Bill Clinton posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Chavez on August 8, 1994. In 2014, President Barack Obama declared March 31st as a federal holiday in commemoration of Cesar Chavez and created a national monument in his honor. Chavez paved the way for acts such as the Better Agricultural Resources Now Act and the Pesticide Registration Improvement Act in 2018. Therefore, the pursuit to safe working conditions is an ongoing process.
Because Cesar Chavez led the UFW to triumphant boycotts and strikes, farm workers have achieved better working conditions and now have unions in place to protect their rights. He persevered through tragic working conditions, arrests, and acts of malice, and emerged triumphant. Nonetheless, the UFW and other organizations are still working to defend farm workers by organizing demonstrations, delivering speeches, and continuing to fight through tragedies.
Our world is a better place because Cesar Chavez decided to change it. Let us honor his memory, but most importantly, let's live up to his example. Thank you. God bless you. God bless America. Si se puede. Si se puede.